and we're diving straight into a strict, data-driven review and tutorial of Tailor Brands. Now, if you're an entrepreneur looking to formally establish your business, you have likely seen their ads everywhere. But today, we're really going to look under the hood, We want to understand exactly how their integrated business formation and branding ecosystem actually works, what it's going to cost you, and most importantly, whether it actually delivers on those big promises. All right, let's jump right in.
Just take a second to wrap your head around the sheer scale here. Since they were founded back in 2015, Tailor Brands has served over 30 million businesses globally. 30 million. That's a massive footprint. They originally started out as just this niche AI-driven logo generator, but as the needs of modern entrepreneurs evolved, well, so did they. They completely shifted gears into this massive, all-in-one business building platform.
Now, the absolutely crucial point to grasp is this definition right here. Tailor Brands is an AI-mediated dashboard, and it's designed specifically to consolidate the incredibly fragmented startup process. Think about it. Historically, you'd have to go out and hire a lawyer for your LLC, then maybe a web developer for your site and a graphic designer for your logo. It was a headache. Tailor Brands takes all of that, legal formation, digital domain registration, and your visual aesthetics, and unifies the whole shebang into one single seamless workflow.
Section 2, Key Features and Steps. This is our tutorial core.
Okay, let's break down their tiered pricing structure. And right off the bat, please note this. State filing fees are always an additional cost on top of these prices, no matter what tier you go with, okay? So the light plan is $0 plus those state fees, and that gets you your standard LLC filing. Then, the Essential plan jumps up to $199 a year, which adds in an operating agreement and your annual compliance. But the Elite plan, sitting at $249 a year, is really where their branding engine completely unlocks. That tier gives you a website builder, a free domain for your first year, and all those high-resolution logos. So, let's say you decide to pull the trigger. This is the exact chronological journey you're going to follow inside that dashboard. First, you name your LLC. Next, you select your state. And then the AI just holds your hand and guides you through filing your articles of organization. After that, you'll choose a registered agent, create your operating agreement, which, establishes the rules of your business, and finally, you apply for your employer identification number, your EIN. This entire automated dashboard is specifically designed to literally remove all the legal guesswork from these steps. It's super streamlined. Once your business is legally formed, it's time to hit the design tools. Now, we have all seen some pretty terrible DIY logos out there, right? But according to Tailor Brands' chief designer, Tom, there are a few very specific mistakes users constantly make in their AI logo editor. And the good news is you can easily avoid them. First, never use more than 2 fonts. If you do, you're just going to confuse the mood of your brand. Second, never make your tagline bigger than your actual business name. Visual hierarchy really matters here. And finally, avoid having your design elements stacked too tightly together or, on the flip side, dragged entirely too far apart. Doing that completely ruins the cohesiveness of the whole design. And actually, speaking of design, here's a highly specific, super practical tip for the logo editor regarding kerning. If you're not familiar, kerning is just the spacing between your letters. Extreme kerning, massive mistake. So to find the absolute perfect balance inside the Tailor Brands studio, here's what you do. Click Type, and make sure to keep the name letter spacing blue dot exactly between 0 and 2. That right there is the sweet spot. It guarantees optimal readability across every single one of your digital assets. Okay, let's pivot back to the compliance side of the dashboard for a second and see how this system actually builds out your business infrastructure. I want to introduce you to Navi. Navi is Tailor Brands' built-in AI sidekick, and it represents a real shift toward proactive compliance. So instead of just sitting there reacting to your inputs, Navi actively monitors state databases, it tracks all your filing deadlines, and it even analyzes your specific business to suggest the exact local permits you're going to need to stay totally legally compliant. Pretty cool, right? Section 3, Real-World Performance. Let's look at use cases and applications. This verified user testimonial from Carolina Flores over at All the Love NYC just perfectly captures the platform's absolute primary strength. She notes that as a small business, she simply cannot afford to have a dedicated legal team, an accountant, and web designer all on retainer. And that's the real-world performance value of Tailor Brands right there. It's the consolidation of those exact roles. It basically simulates having an entire back-end team for just a fraction of the cost of hiring individual human experts. So, if we distill all this data down, here's the core real-world application. Tailor Brands is the ultimate launchpad, but it's specifically best for solo founders whose primary bottleneck is time rather than capital.
You are explicitly making a trade-off here. You're trading that granular professional control, things like having an attorney draft a custom contract from scratch or a designer hand-drawing a bespoke logo. You're trading that for high-speed execution and absolute convenience.
Section 4, Pros and Cons. It's time for an honest, balanced evaluation. Now, the aggregate reputation data tells a really fascinating story. Over on Trustpilot, out of more than 14,000 reviews, Tailor Brands actually holds a massive 4.8 out of 5 average rating, with 89% of those being highly positive. So clearly, the vast majority of users are absolutely thrilled. However, we definitely cannot ignore the very vocal 11% minority leaving 1-star reviews. Those negative reviews actually point directly to some very specific operational bottlenecks that we really need to talk about.
Let's balance the scales objectively here. The pros, they're undeniably strong. The all-in-one ecosystem is super comprehensive, that Navi AI compliance tracking is genuinely innovative, and the initial filing speed is just fantastic. But the cons are equally well documented. Users very frequently complain about upsell sticker shock during the checkout process. Furthermore, the cancellation process itself can be quite complex to navigate. And it's worth noting, the company maintains a very strict policy of not providing prorated refunds once a service, like a state filing or a design download, is actually initiated.
Let's actually break down that sticker shock for a second. While the Lite plan is technically $0, a lot of essential business tools carry pretty steep markups. For example, getting an EIN through Tailor Brands is going to cost you $99. Now, you can absolutely do this for free directly through the IRS, assuming you're willing to navigate their legendary bureaucracy yourself, of course. A registered agent through the platform costs $199 a year, and a business license report is another $99. Basically, you are paying a premium for the convenience of having everything click together inside one dashboard without ever having to leave the site.
Section 5, the final verdict, our summary takeaway.
All right, here is what you absolutely must take away before you hand over your credit card. Tailor Brands is practically unmatched when it comes to consolidating branding and legal formation into one single place. Its AI design tools? Excellent, especially if you're a beginner. Economically speaking, if you are building a digital-first business, the Elite plan at $249 a year actually offers the best long-term value simply because of that included website and domain. However, and this is a big however, you have got to navigate the checkout carefully to avoid any auto-enrolled add-ons, and you need to go in fully aware of their strict cancellation terms. I want to leave you with a provocative thought to ponder today. There's no doubt Tailor Brands is an incredible launchpad to get you off the sidelines and into the formal economy fast. But as your business inevitably scales and naturally becomes more complex, will you eventually outgrow that high automation convenience of an all-in-one ecosystem? Will you eventually need to replace it with high-touch, specialized human expertise? It's a really critical strategic question to keep on your roadmap. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep building, and I will see you next time.